Hi, this is Shane Sill for Team Discraft Underground. Today we're going to be talking about rollers, what disc I like to throw for rollers, kind of how we set those down, the strategy behind why do I throw a roller, and maybe what disc fly better. So let's start maybe with why you would throw a roller. For me, it's pretty simple. I still play a lot with open players who can throw 500, 550 feet. I throw about 400 feet, so I'm at a disadvantage already. So when the opportunity arises for me to get in an open field like we have here on a longer hole, if I can put down a roller and let that be an equalizer on my distance, I'll do that. Other reasons you might want to throw a roller, maybe there's not an unobstructed path in the air to the basket. Maybe you need to throw something to get around a corner, or maybe there's an extremely low ceiling that you have to navigate. There's a couple of different types of rollers that fall into categories. I would say backhand and forehand are probably the most broadest of categories. We'll start with the backhand today, and we'll do a future video working on the forehand. So let's talk about what kind of disc we want to throw for a roller. Some discs roll better than others, just like some discs fly farther than others. We have the same thing here. Let's talk about something called rotational inertia. When I'm throwing my disc with a backhand flight and I'm throwing this, really the primary thing that's giving my disc flight is how fast or what the velocity is coming out of my hand. The rotational inertia basically just keeps that disc stable on that flight. So the spin, you can get into the Bernoulli principle and those things about where it's creating lift on what side of the wing, but really what it's doing is just holding my disc stable in this flight. The difference though when I'm throwing a roller is I'm going to be throwing my disc like this, so I have the initial velocity, same as when I'm throwing an air shot, but I also have this rotational inertia that is still moving in the direction of my flight. So rotational inertia does have an impact on how we throw rollers. With that being said, what disc will give us the most rotational inertia? It's disc with a lot of the weight distribution around the rim. Having an even distribution of weight throughout the disc really doesn't help as much as having a disc, a wide rim disc typically that has most of the weight distributed out here, because it gives you more of that rotational inertia. So look for a wide rim disc if you can, something with most of the weight on the outside. That's really going to help with the rotational inertia being faster and helping your disc fly. Now, or excuse me, how your disc roll. So how about the flight? Right here, I'm throwing a stable disc. I know right-handed backhand is going to go out, and it's pretty much going to go left at the end since it's a stable disc. Guess what? When you throw a roller, those same flight characteristics hold true. If I'm rolling a stable disc, it's going to go out, but it's going to want to go left, just very similar to the flight of that disc. If I need to roll a disc that's going to go to the right, then I'm going to roll a disc very similar to a disc that I would fly that would go to the right, something that's less stable. So there's some quick tips about types of discs to try, and disc, how they roll, and their flight's going to be very similar to how they fly. I'm going to say that part again. So discs, when they roll on the ground, roll in the shape or the pattern very similar to how a disc flies. So let's take a few of these, roll them out here. We have a little bit of a headwind going in this direction. We'll try it here, and then maybe we'll throw some going in that direction. But let's talk about, before we do that, the angle that we're going to put it down compared to the flight characteristics that we just talked about. I already said this is a stable disc, so when I'm putting this disc down, I know that this disc is going to want to go a little bit more to the left. So I'm going to have to stand this disc up fairly straight when I roll it to keep it from going left. We eventually want it to stand up, and get straight, vertical at the end, and maybe fall over just a little bit. If I'm wanting to throw a roller with this disc that will go to the right, then I'm really going to have to stand it up almost vertical out of my hand. Conversely, if I have something like the Heat here that I'm throwing, a very understable disc, I know that it wants to go right. Same thing when I roll it, remember, similar characteristics. I'm going to have to put this disc on a much more of an angle so that it will stand itself up as it goes. All right, let's take a look at these on the field and see how they work out. Hi, this is Shane Sill from the Discraft Underground. I'm going to be throwing a few rollers today. I shot the first part of this video this morning. We had a little bit of wind had some audio issues, so I'm going to redo that part here and at least show you the flights of these. So the first disc I'll be throwing is the Discraft Heat. This is a very understable disc. Its flight travels to the right, and so when I throw this roller, what you're going to see out of the roller flight is something very close to its actual flight in the air. I'm going to put the disc down, and then it's going to curve off to the right at the end of its flight. Let's take a look. I'll throw 2 heats here. So here's the first one. So you can see the flight stayed pretty straight, and then the disc curved off and finished to the right. Very similar to what you would think the flight of this disc, an understable disc, would do in the air. That's why players who have the arm really prefer to throw something with a little bit more stability, so you don't get that hard right. You get a little bit more distance out of it. So let's take a look at this. This is the Paul Macbeth Hades. So we put that down with a pretty good angle there. So we can see we're getting some nice long flight out of that, or rolling out of that. Still standing, still standing. Finish similar to the Heat, but way down the fairway from where the Heat did.